When we are dealing with people playing tabletop RPGs, everyone tends to run into a very similar and very consistent problem. How am I going to be unique? And I think it is a problem that some people don't necessarily need to worry about as much as they do. Everyone has been playing these games, both on the table and in a video game format for many, many years. We have a very set stock of races, classes, backgrounds, archetypes, whatever have you, that you are feasibly able to do within these games. Human history has been recorded for thousands of years. Some older myths and legends get passed around even today, and they form tropes that we tend to associate with our current stories and adventures. However, with millions of authors writing billions of stories throughout recorded history, we've always had a special place in that we are the current set of writers and authors, and creatives hundreds of years from now will look back at us and say, I can't do that, it's already been done, or you're writing that? How original. I want to take a look at Baldur's Gate 3 and kinda exemplify what I mean. Because the thing is, you can take a very boring, generic, and flat character traits and expand upon them within the context of a story that you are in. None of the main companions in Baldur's Gate 3 are particularly interesting, and yet we fall in love with them and view the majority of them as incredibly well written and diverse cast for everyone to enjoy. With that, join me if you would as we examine these characters primarily in pairs for simplicity's sake, with a special cross-examination later on in the video. This is intended to be a general overview, and thus character traits are again going to be simplified. These characters have a lot of connecting themes, but for the sake of presentation, I'm doing them in pairs, and will still likely reference characters outside of their pairing. Okay, cool, great, love you. First up, we have the two boyos you would never imagine being part of the same social circle until you realize deep down they are the exact same person, except they were raised and taught differently with the same core values. Both of them are very frequent in higher social circles than the rest of the party, for the most part. They both had great expectations thrust upon them and aspired to meet those demands. They are both incredibly ambitious themselves and crave more by any means necessary. And they both have had their entire lives by an entity far beyond their reach and power. They value self-determination and the freedom to do what they want above all else. And they see the situations that they've been raised in as kind of the default cycle of the world. However, Astarion takes a very callous and selfish approach to achieve his own personal goals, often throwing others under the bus or delighting in the suffering others take just to further his own ends. And he aspires to be perfect to avoid punishment or being subjugated because he lives within a cycle of you are the best or you are nothing. Gail, on the other hand, generally takes a more empathetic approach to the plights of others, and is willing to help them achieve their own goals, not all the time for no reason, but if it isn't too far out of the way, he will gladly help people. And he aspires to perfection for the sake of being loved and not neglected. The dynamic that he was in was specifically formed around the fact that he had to be perfect or he was no one, and a lot of the wizards in the game echo that kind of sentiment. On a very limited, biased, and curated list like the one I've just shown you, these two have a whole hell of a lot in common. They bounce off each other extremely well, and you can see this if you are an Origin Astarion or Gael, and you both ascend to greater powers. Ascended Astarion only cares about establishing his own realm of subjugation, while Ascended Gael wishes to spread his success and thirst and drive to the entirety of the multiverse. Yet, when you interact with them, and when you talk to the fans of each, they react so horrendously different. Maybe it's because sexy vampires are a better thirst trap, but who knows. These two are not too dissimilar from my personal experience. I will admit they are the two storylines I've interacted with the least, but from what I have gathered and what I have come to understand, they are both strong warriors who were taught to fight from a very young age. Both of them are among the best in their respective fields and the duties that are expected of them. Both spent much of their development off the material plane. Lael spent most of it in the Astral Sea, whereas Karlach was in the Nine Hells. And both put their personal codes above everything else outside of dire circumstances, and are willing to sacrifice themselves if it means to get the job done. However, Karlach is very altruistic and will put her life on the line before innocence. She will never let an innocent person come to harm if it is within her power to stop it. She craves personal contact, but cannot achieve it due to physical limitations, that being the Hellfire engine in her chest. And she wants to be free from the chains that bind her, to be truly independent and to be able to chase the life that she wants and that she feels like she deserves. Lael is far more pragmatic, and it will do what is tactically sound over what is morally sound. Arguably craves emotional connection, but cannot achieve it due to the cultural expectation. Githyanki culture is very distant and very cold and very pragmatic, and they have a hard time building these humanoid connections. I almost said human, they're not humans. She holds Githyanki code, culture, and hierarchy above all else. Even when rebelling, it is to still in a more traditional and proper means of government. Most people love these two. Karlach you grow to love from the outset, while Lael grows more on people like a moss. They actually are perfect mirrors of how you can take a chaotic and a lawful character and put them in the same party, and they will be able to cooperate. Because for the most part, while their modus operandi is different, it's both aimed at the same goal, and I think that's what gives the glue that holds these two together and actually makes them probably the most, not despisable, but not the best team. They can work together very well, but that does not mean they have to get along. Now, these two, some people may be surprised by, but give me a moment to explain why they go so well together and how their stories are kind of inflections of each other. Despite people thinking Will would pair better with Karlach, I mean, they do share an ending for crying out loud, but for the most part, these two share having their powers given to them by an external entity, and having to abide by a deep contract that is associated with that entity, for risk of losing all that makes them strong and useful to the party. The skill is frowned upon by their family, albeit for different reasons. Well, I promise you, there's a different kind of frowning. But overall, it is simply being a tool used by others to achieve nefarious and horrifying means, with any attempt at freeing themselves becoming an existential crisis if that really is the correct play that they should go through, whether that is their destiny or whether that is just what they want. What they want and what needs to happen don't always align. But yet they do kind of stand apart in that Shadowheart is still very much loved by her family, no matter what she does. In her final moments, to my understanding of both the Shar and the Selûne ending, her parents love her for who she was. They never gave up on her, and they loved her until their dying breath, assuming you killed them. And Shadowheart is also actually the main character of the game, if the player doesn't exist. She has way too much goddamn writing, there's too much fucking direction given her. Whereas Will is regularly regarded as a disappointment and a failure by everyone it meets. There is not a single NPC that regards Will as a heroic or a virtuous or an upstanding individual. Will is regularly shoved to the sidelines by almost every NPC you meet in the game. And the developers forgot about him 2/3 of the way through the production and all went to Shadowheart and Asarian. So, you know, Gother and Will, no one really cares about the nice guys anymore. Come on, get out of here. Yeah, show. For real though, the biggest difference between them is how much effort went into Shadowheart's story, as hers is one of the instances where if you don't bring her along, she just leaves. And Will very much has nothing to do but 3 side quests, 1 to find Karlach, 1 for Mizora, and 1 to save his father. I really wish I could give a better analysis on how Will can fit into everyone, but blah 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 blah. Listen, if you think this is easy, you can go ahead and do it yourself, okay? That's what you can do. You can go ahead and do it yourself. Now, there is one last kind of pairing I want to bring up here, because there's a lot of different characters in this game, and you might be thinking, oh, maybe it's going to be Minsk and Jaheira or Halsin. Maybe it'll be the Dark Urge and some of the companions. Ooh, or maybe even Scratch and the Albert. No, the 2 people no one would even think I would try to compare. It is the Oathbreaker Knight and Volo. They both have an existence that pisses me the fuck off. They're both immortal beings. They have an elevated sense of self-importance and make no goddamn sense the majority of the time. However, Volo is a dumb bard that makes bards look bad, and honestly, as someone who calls himself the magical bard, I kinda hate Volo, and 2, he rips you apart physically. Cue the eyeball thing, you know, the little pop. The Oathbreaker, though, was just made up for this game. He never before was the Oathbreaker ever mentioned in anything that I can call for, and if there's any Forgotten Realms lore nerds who can correct me and say, actually, no, like, I do not believe the Oathbreaker Knight should have actually been in this game. I would have preferred he just did not exist. But he has a sick as hell armor and a cool VA, so, like, I can't be too mad because he is actually kind of cool. I wish he didn't exist, but I'm not like as mad that he exists as I am that Volo exists, if you know what I mean. Because the Oathbreaker Knight like looks cool, and I think he makes like a perfect Oathbreaker Knight. Whatever. But yeah, no, I actually hate both these characters for completely nerdy incel behavior, and I won't put too much of that opinion on the internet because people already find me enough for being a lizard, so I'll save that fuel for another time. Overall, though, the point I'm trying to get across is that your character does not have to be like a wholly unique or original idea to have extravagant details mixed into them, right? A lot of tried and true basic concepts can be used as a foundation, and then you can let the world they exist in add to the complexity that people care so much about. A lot of our favorite individuals from mythology have been copy and pasted for years, and yet we have never batted an eye at that idea. The things like the hero's journey exists for a reason, and I think overstressing the minutia of how exactly your character is going to stick out within the party is only going to hurt you in the end. If you want to make a character that it feels realistic, that feels relatable, that you can build upon as you play throughout your game, you can just go ahead and, hell, you could make yourself and just plug yourself into a fantasy world, and you will see how that changes. We are shaped by the experiences we have, we are shaped by the world around us and how others treat us, we are shaped by everything that is affected by us. The same traits that you can have of one person right now are going to be completely different given 5 years' time if you moved them to the other end of the world. So go out there, make your human fighter trying to earn some coin, let the story develop him from there. Don't try to force it, just go play the game. Until next time.